Welcome back. It's still the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We have joining us for our first conversation this morning, Kayode Ekundayo, who is a publisher of Energy Times newspaper, reaching us from Lagos via phone. Before we go to him, let's quickly inform you the Nigeria's federal government has announced that it has successfully completed the takeover of struggling distribution companies, including these electricity distribution companies, including the Kaduna, Kano, Ibadan, and Port Harcourt DisCos. This was announced by the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprise, Mr. Alex Oko, while briefing the National Council on Privatization, which is chaired, of course, by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, on the update of a takeover of 4 electricity distribution companies in the country. Now, the DisCos, as they're called, were forced under the new management over poor debt management issues, according to the news agency of Nigeria. I'm sure there are other issues that we need to unpack as far as this is concerned. So, Kayode Ekundayo, thank you very much for your time. Can you just quickly unpack for us what the issues are as far as this surprising takeover by the federal government of the DisCos is concerned?
Good morning. Let me say this. There is nothing to surprise about. It is something that some of us have been expecting. Shortly after the banks took over the affair of this DisCos. And let me lay foundation for this. Since the privatization of this DisCos in Nigeria, it was clear that some of these DisCos will be a failure in terms of electricity distribution because of the capability and ability of the investors. And also some of these DisCos took loans from the banks, and unfortunately they couldn't pay back, and the bank took over. You remember Abuja, you remember Ibadan, you remember Kano, Kaduna, and actually all the DisCos actually took loan from the bank. Now, if you look at what is happening now, it's something that we see happen to some of these DisCos that are remaining because of their inability to manage the resources they are getting in terms of electricity distribution in the country. They keep on telling us that some of this money they are getting goes into infrastructure, which is not so. Some of this money are going to the purse of the people who bought this DisCo. So we are likely to see more and be taken over by banks and taken over by. And you remember, BP has 40% interest in each of the DisCos. And that is federal government. And you remember that early in the year of the privatization, about immediately this administration took over. A trillion naira was given to the DisCo, which was shared among them. I think that is the share of the federal government to support the DisCo. And despite that, they still claiming that they don't have enough resources to manage their affairs. And if you remember some of the things that are happening now, the essence of privatization is to make power supply to be available in each of the homes, including meeting of the consumers. None of them have been done by the DisCos. Now let's look at even the areas their ability is being exercised. Look at Ibadan. Ibadan has the highest and the largest spread in Nigeria, covering 5 states, with the headquarters in Ibadan, managing power supply in Niger State, Ogi, Kwara, some part of Ekiti, an institution that is based in Ibadan. Is it not a program of failure? I think even the immediate privatization of the DisCos, the federal government should have looked at the coverage of this DisCo and divided it into 2 or 3. That will have made them to be successful. But instead, privatize the way it was. How can a system work when you have an administrative office, for instance, in Oyo State, and you ask them to be managing an institution in Niger State, in the north, in Kogi, in Kwara? How possible? So the failure we are seeing today is an inherited failure from PHCN and NEPA, and we are still likely to see. Look at Kaduna. Kaduna is managing 4 states, Zamfara and some other states. They can't manage this. It's too big. It's too big for them to manage. Even if they have a regional coordinating unit, it's not sufficient enough to have. It's like when you have local government. Why does state have local government? It's to bring government to the people. But in this case, look at what we are seeing. So the problem has been, and it will continue to be. And I'm foreseeing a situation where the federal government is likely to take over the whole DisCo.
All right, Ekundayo,
possible.
Let's also look at the concerns. I mean, it's very obvious that, the failure of the power sector has been largely blamed on the DisCos. But however, the GenCos and other industry players have complained, just like I've mentioned, of the failure of the DisCos to make complete remittance. And that had caused the financial strain in the country's power business, because this is really where the problem actually lies. But on the other hand, the DisCos have also complained of the fact that the end users have actually failed to pay electricity bill. Mostly, you have the ministries, departments, and agencies of government that have failed. And we're talking about including the military and paramilitary organizations. It has exceeded 90 billion naira from the time of, privatization, 2013 up until date. Do you still blame, the DisCos for the the shortcomings of the power sector?
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me tell you, the GenCos have their own problems. Now, the major problem the GenCos are facing, I think, is in form of gas. It's not about infrastructure. DisCos and TCN are the major linkage. They are the ones who have the problem with infrastructure. The gas supply the GenCos are having is in terms of paying dollar, paying naira, or pay before you take. Those are the challenges the GenCos have. But the main bulk of the challenge rests on the DisCos. Now, if the military and paramilitary or other parastatals are not paying their bill as at when due, that was the reason the metering, which is prepaid metering, was introduced. Now, are the DisCos up to that task to meter the unmetered consumers? No. The federal government introduced free metering. This GenCo refused to meter people. They were selling it to consumers. That is under zero scheme. For instance, Ikeja was given 350,000. And we say categorically that they meter 350,000. Again, the federal government introduced buying and reforms under MAP. That is asset management provider. Are they living up to expectation of consumers?
But
No.
Ekundayo, let's also come to the fact that if you look at this, even from the inception, and that's why you also have the DisCos faced with the situation of takeovers from the banks, the indebtedness, has it been paid? Because every other time, they are constrained with, finances. The fact that you have end users that are not paying, and mostly government agencies, and they exist for a certain purpose. At the time, you also have the DisCos also complaining of the subsidy of 100 billion naira that the government has not paid. You mentioned that 1 trillion was given, but they are saying that they have not received anything. And so some of the experts have said that, the inception, that the entire idea of privatization from its inception from 2013 was faulted. And that's why you have all of this.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you that it's not well. I mean, the privatization of the DisCos was not well structured, and that is why we are having this challenge. Yes, there are subsidies. Government has been paying, because I remember about NEC. NEC is in charge of this subsidy. They are paying to them, but DisCos will deny some of these things. We get all these facts. If the DisCos said they haven't gotten 1 trillion naira, all these things can be verified on CBN. CBN tie this money to infrastructure, which they are giving to them. And if these people have been giving that money in cash, you know what they will have done? They will have used it to pay their loan. And what we are seeing today in the banks, you won't see it. And that was what the federal government avoided by tying this thing to infrastructure supply, which is why some of them are having this challenge. Yes, we can say there are liquidity issues in the sector, but I must say that the DisCos are found wanting in terms of managing the resources they have.
All right,
and that is why we are at this level.
Kayode Ekundayo, looking at this issue of liquidity and the remittances from the 11 DisCos, in even with the implementation of the minimum remittance order by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, a bit to help them, make them pay at least 75% of the invoice. They couldn't meet up with that. Can we look at the role of the consumer in all of this? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it is the consumer who will pay for the electricity they've used. We've seen increasing electricity tariffs in recent months, or recent years, rather. What about the difficulty that the DisCos have had and complained about in terms of getting the payment of their monthly rent by consumers? And will this problem go away if the Republic Enterprises takes over the management of the DisCos for now? Wouldn't they still face the same issue?
Let me say this. The consumers have been facing affluent tax in terms of tariff. I can tell you categorically that between January to this time, DisCos tariff has been increased 3 times without any noise being made by consumers. And nobody is reacting to that, because consumers want power. And many people, as of today, some of the consumers are on prepaid meters, and they are not worried about what once the power is stable. And the reason why, and that is the reason why the federal government introduced prepaid meter, in order to avoid estimated billing. About 22 million Nigerians are still yet to be metered. That is consumers. Now, if we say that we don't have liquidity, you are not meeting your consumers. There are bypasses all over the places. There are vandalism all over the places. How do you recover your cost?
But Ekunda, is
Those are
this
the
not
things
evidence?
that are affecting the
You've talked
disco.
about bypassing of the meters, which is a big problem
Yes,
for those who are on
yes,
prepaid. So isn't this an issue
yes.
that the federal government probably should have been more understanding of the
There
disco
is
to
something
enable?
concern federal government in terms of meter bypassing. It's the responsibility of the disco to tackle the problem. That is the truth. What is, how many responsibility federal government will carry? It has been privatized now. It's now left for them to look at the way they can tackle the problem.
Okay, so
But
Ekunda,
right now, yeah.
go ahead with your thoughts.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my question now is: do you think that this is a rational move that the government is taking over, some of these discos, and like you've rightly mentioned, there might be an entire takeover, because in the first situation is that government is not very efficient in managing anything. It's not a good manager, and so that's why it was privatized in the first instance. So, do you think that this is rational?
It's rational, please. It's the best for us at this time. We
Is it
can't continue. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is it really rational? You say it's rational, but in the sense that you have the administration, because it's an administration problem, and so you have instances where the federal government itself, I mean, these agencies that are of the government are not living up to the expectation. They don't pay the bills.
Do you know, sir, that the discourse that are taken over by government, they are bankrupt? That is the meaning. If the government can sell or anybody sell something to you or sold something to you and eventually taking over, that's bankruptcy. So do we continue in that manner? So many of these discourse will be taken over by government very soon.
Who are the investors in these discos? Because it seems like we still have some of the practices that Nigerians are used to, from the days of NEPA, still being evident with these discos, and maybe that's why Nigerians have refused to stop calling them NEPA. They still call them NEPA till today. Is it flouting the NEC regulations in terms of what you need to do before you disconnect a customer? I'm sure every average person you meet on the street, including myself and Mercy, who's seated here with me, will have one complaint or the other about one of or two of the distribution companies. I've had my own experiences. The NEC regulations are clear about how you need to inform the consumer before cutting in writing, and the period you need to give the person before disconnection, and decline your pole just to make that 3,000 naira connection fee. Just to make that 3,000 naira connection fee. The bogus bills are sent to Nigerians, millions of Nigerians who are still unmetered. If we want to talk about that till today, we will not go. People who are struggling to make ends meet get bills that are higher in a year than the rent they pay. It's unthinkable, and they can't explain. You have millions of people who have been told to write to the distribution companies to complain, and the companies don't even care. They don't care about them. They just are fulfilling all righteousness because the rules say so. People are groaning under the burden of overbilling by these distribution companies. No care, no concern. They're treated as if they are nobodies and slaves. And people are simply tired. People have gone to court. Some have developed sicknesses, high blood pressure because of the fights. They come back home and see a bill of hundreds of thousands of naira. There's a gentleman who spoke to me some time ago and said, "See, Kofi, I don't know if they've hooked my house to the airport." People who earn about less than minimum wage are getting bills of 100,000 naira, 80,000 naira, and so on and so forth. That's number one. Number two, Nigerians are still paying for meat for transformers. communities will have to still go through the crude ways of NEPA of yesteryear to do electricity committee in a particular estate or community or a street. Oh, let's put money together, let's buy a transformer. And they still have to pay these guys to come, these distribution companies to come and fix it. And they collect money for that. And then when it's bad, they still come to collect money to repair it. You know, so what happened? Why are we? Where was the problem that we're still seeing these guys? I mean, taking Nigerians for granted like it was in NEPA days. Probably seeing Nigerians as golden, you know, the goose that lays the golden egg to be fleeced.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I saw your analysis, and I mean, it's something that has been bothering my mind too. But let me say this. Let me talk first of all on the estimation of metering, which are given to consumers. You see, that is the essence of introducing prepaid meter. And you know, the bulk money of this DisCos comes from this estimated billing. And I told somebody recently that there is no way DisCos will allow full metering of consumers in Nigeria. So at the same time, they are suffering for it too, because of this bypassing and some other things. And even with a prepaid meter, they are bypassing it. You know Nigerians now. So they are bypassing it. So, but let me say this. It will take many years for us to erase estimation from the DisCos. We are going to continue like this for very many years to come, until possibly another set of investors take over some of these DisCos. Because the current investors we have in these DisCos now, they are very desperate to recover costs. And earlier on, we talked about 75% collection from MBED, which they are paying to MBED. That's a bulk company. It will continue like that, because they know the capability and the attitude of these people. The cost of gas now is $4 per cubic feet. The GENCO need to recover this money, and it has to come from the DisCos.
Well,
it is what DisCos remitted to the MBED, and they will pay the GENCOs.
I mean, Kayode Ekundayo, I wish we had more time to talk about this, because it feels like the DisCos are just at it, you know, the slaughtered table and then be slaughtered, because you have the transmission, you also have generation and distribution. But it feels like distribution might just be really the problem. Are you saying that, you know, the transmission and the generation has no, you know, challenge in all of this that we're faced with? But we need to go on some other time. We'll talk about it. Thank you so much, Kayode Ekundayo, for being part of the breakfast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Yeah, talking to you. Yeah, it's great.
All right, then. Kayode Ekundayo is a publisher at Energy Times newspaper right here in Lagos. And we'll take a break. When we return, we'll look at our second conversation. Please stay with us.